Pain shot through Liam Cross's skull as his eyes cracked open. The world spun in blurry circles before settling into sharp focus. Smoke drifted through the wrecked shuttle interior, and sparks popped from a damaged control panel near his head. He tasted copper and realized his lip was split. The last thing he remembered was the impact, the screaming of metal, and then darkness. Liam pushed himself upright and immediately regretted it. His ribs protested with a dull ache, but nothing felt broken. He ran a quick mental inventory of his body parts. Everything still worked. That was something. The shuttle around him looked like a giant had crumpled it in his fist. Seats were torn from their moorings, and supplies were scattered across the floor like toys. The silence hit him next. No voices. No movement. He was alone. Liam stumbled to the cockpit and checked the empty seats. His stomach dropped. The rest of his training unit was gone. Every single one of them. He found a data pad wedge between two consoles and activated it. Lieutenant Varen's six-eyed face appeared on the screen, his mandibles clicking in what Liam had learned was the Kelith equivalent of a grimace. Cadet Cross, if you're viewing this, I apologize. You were unconscious when the hull breach alarm sounded. Coalition protocol is clear. We cannot risk 8 lives for one. The emergency shuttle had 7 seats. We took what supplies we could carry and left you the rest. May your gods be kinder than ours. The recording ended. Liam stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then set the pad down carefully. Getting angry would not help. Panic would not help. He needed to think. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory, rough and patient. When you're lost in the bush, boy, you stop and breathe. Assess what you have. Make a plan. Fear makes you stupid. Liam took a deep breath and looked around. The shuttle's emergency locker was still intact. He pulled it open and took stock. 3 days of water. 4 days of ration bars. A basic medical kit. A plasma cutter for repairs. A damaged emergency beacon that blinked weakly every few seconds. No weapons. His unit had taken those that he moved to the shattered viewport and looked outside. Crimson jungle stretched in every direction, the vegetation thick and alien. 3 moons hung in the purple sky, casting strange shadows across the landscape. This was Cairo's 7. Even the name sent chills through most species in the coalition. A quarantine moon, a dumping ground for the galaxy's worst predators. Something moved in the tree line. Liam went very still. His eyes tracked the shadow as it circled the crash site. Then another shadow joined it, and another. Within minutes, he counted 7 distinct shapes, each one massive and low to the ground. They moved with the fluid grace of natural hunters, their forms barely visible through the dense undergrowth. The shuttle's external sensors were still functional. Liam activated them and pulled up the feed. His breath caught. The creatures were called Rindstalkers, according to the database. Each one stood roughly the size of a grizzly bear, with sleek black bodies covered in what looked like segmented armor plating. Blade-like claws extended from their paws, and their eyes reflected the sensor light like mirrors. The database had exactly 3 words of useful information. Apex predator, highly aggressive. But Liam watched them circle for 20 minutes, and something did not add up. They were not attacking. They were not even trying to break into the shuttle. They moved in a pattern, coordinated and deliberate. One would advance while the others held position. Then they would rotate. It was organized, intentional. Liam pulled up every scrap of data the shuttle had on Rindstalkers. Most of it was warnings and casualty reports. Hunting parties wiped out. Research teams that never reported back. But buried in the files was one observation from a long-dead xenobiologist. Pack structure observed. Possible matriarchal hierarchy. Insufficient data before facility overrun. Pack structure meant social intelligence. It meant communication and cooperation. Liam had grown up in the Australian outback, helping his grandfather track dingoes that raided livestock. His grandfather had taught him that predators were not monsters. They were animals trying to survive, and they followed patterns. If you understood the patterns, you could predict behavior. Sometimes you could even coexist. He watched the largest Rindstalker, a female with a scarred muzzle, take the lead position. The others deferred to her, giving her space and following her movements. A matriarch, just like the dead scientist had guessed. The pack was not attacking because she had not given the order. She was assessing the threat, just like Liam was assessing her. An insane idea formed in his mind. His grandfather would have called it stupid. The coalition would call it suicidal. But Liam had always trusted his instincts, and his instincts said these creatures were smart enough to understand intent that he checked the door's seal. It would open. He could walk outside. The question was whether he would survive the next 5 minutes. Liam looked at the emergency beacon. It would take at least 10 days for any coalition ship to reach this sector, and that was only if they bothered to respond. He could hide in the shuttle and pray the Rindstalkers got bored. Or he could do something no one in the galaxy had apparently tried before. Liam disabled the door lock and felt the mechanism click. The scarred matriarch's head snapped toward the sound. All 7 Rindstalkers went rigid, their attention fixed on the shuttle entrance. Liam's heart hammered in his chest, but his hands were steady as he pushed the door open. The crimson jungle air hit him, humid and rich with unfamiliar scents. He stepped out onto the torn earth, his boots crunching on scattered debris. The Rindstalkers formed a semicircle around him, their reflective eyes locked on his every movement. He could see their muscles coiled beneath their armor plating, ready to spring. One lunge, and they would tear him apart. Liam slowly lowered himself to the ground and sat cross-legged in the dirt. He kept his hands visible and his posture relaxed. Then he started talking. "Hey there. I know you probably do not understand a word I am saying, but that is okay. I'm not here to hurt you. I am stuck here, just like you were stuck with me." His voice was calm and low, the same tone he used with skittish animals back home. "That big scary shuttle is all I have. This is your territory, and I respect that. So let us figure out how to share the space without anyone getting eaten." The matriarch tilted her head, and Liam swore he saw intelligence flicker in those mirror eyes. She took one step closer, then another. The other Rindstalkers remained motionless, waiting for her decision. She was now close enough that Liam could smell her, a musky scent like wet earth and something sharper. She sat down. Liam let out a breath he did not know he was holding. The other Rindstalkers followed her lead, settling into resting positions around the crash site. They were still watching him, still ready to react, but the immediate threat had passed. He had just done the impossible. He had made first contact with creatures that terrified the entire galaxy, and he had done it by refusing to be afraid. 16 hours had passed since Liam sat down in the dirt. The 3 moons of Kairos, 7 traced their paths across the purple sky, while he maintained his vigil with the Rindstalkers. His legs had gone numb twice, but he refused to make any sudden movements. The scarred matriarch, whom he had mentally named Sable for her dark coloring, had not moved from her position 5 meters away. Her pack remained spread around the crash site in a loose perimeter. Liam used the time to observe. He had learned more about these creatures in one day than the coalition had discovered in decades. Sable was clearly the leader, but the social structure went deeper than simple dominance. 3 adult males formed her inner circle, each with distinct personalities. The largest male, who Liam called Russ for the reddish tint to his armor, seemed to be her primary enforcer. He positioned himself between Sable and any potential threats, including Liam. The second male, Flint, was leaner and moved with aggressive confidence. He tested boundaries constantly, approaching closer to the shuttle than the others before Sable would issue a low rumble that sent him back to position. The third male, Smoke, was the opposite. He hung back, watching everything with patient calculation. Liam recognized the type. Smoke was the strategist. Then there were the 3 younger ones, barely more than adolescents. They were smaller, their armor plates not yet fully hardened. Liam named them Dash, Ember, and Scout based on their behaviors. Dash was curious and energetic, constantly moving. Ember stayed close to Sable, seeking approval. Scout lived up to his name, disappearing into the jungle for hours before returning to report something to the matriarch through a series of chirps and body language. What fascinated Liam most was how they communicated. The Rindstalkers had a complex system of vocalizations, from deep rumbles to high-pitched clicks. But they also used scent marking and subtle body postures. When Russ wanted to challenge Flint over a resting spot, he did not attack. He arched his back and showed his claws. Flint responded by lowering his head and moving. No violence, just clear communication. Liam's stomach growled, reminding him that observation did not fill an empty belly. He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a ration bar. The movement caught every Rendstalker's attention. 7 pairs of reflective eyes locked onto the small package in his hand. Liam unwrapped it carefully and took a bite. The chalky protein paste tasted like cardboard, but it was calories. Sable's nostrils flared. She could smell the food. Liam looked at the ration bar, then at the pack. They were lean. Not starving, but definitely not well fed. The crash site was in their territory, and he was betting they had driven away their usual prey when they claimed this area. They were hungry, and here he sat with food. An idea formed. It was risky, but everything on this moon was risky. Liam broke off a small piece of the ration bar and tossed it gently towards Sable. It landed in the dirt about a meter from her. She stared at it, then at Liam. Her pack went rigid with attention. This was a test, and everyone knew it. Sable rose to her feet with liquid grace. She approached the food, sniffed it thoroughly, then delicately picked it up in her jaws. She chewed slowly, her expression unreadable. Then she made a sound Liam had not heard before, a sort of approving grunt. The pack relaxed slightly. Liam broke off more pieces and tossed them to the others. Not enough to feed them, just enough to establish trust. Russ took his piece cautiously. Flint snatched his from the air. Smoke waited until the younger ones had their shares before taking his own. It was a hierarchy in action, and Liam was learning the rules as the second night fell. Liam finally allowed himself to stand. His legs screamed in protest, pins and needles racing through his muscles. He limped back toward the shuttle, moving slowly and deliberately. The pack watched but did not follow. He retrieved his sleeping mat and a water container, then returned to his spot outside. Sleeping in the shuttle seemed like a rejection of the fragile peace they had established. He settled down on the mat and pulled his jacket tighter against the cooling air. The Rendstalkers had shifted positions, forming a tighter circle. They were no longer guarding against him. They were guarding the territory that now included him. The realization hit Liam with quiet wonder. He had been adopted. Sleep came in fits and starts. Every sound in the jungle jerked him awake, his heart pounding. But each time, he saw the pack still on watch, their eyes glowing in the darkness. Around midnight, by his estimate, a deep roar echoed from somewhere to the north. It was not a Rendstalker. It was something bigger, and it was hunting. The pack responded immediately. Sable rose and issued a series of sharp barks. The others formed up behind her, facing the direction of the sound. Even the younger ones took defensive positions. Liam sat up, adrenaline flooding his system. Whatever was out there, it worried creatures that feared nothing. The roar came again, closer this time. Liam could hear something massive crashing through the undergrowth. Rust and Flint moved to the perimeter, their claws extended and ready. Smoke circled behind, protecting the flanks. The younger ones huddled near Sable, who stood like a statue carved from midnight stone. Then Liam heard something else. A whimper. It was faint and pained, coming from the east. One of the pack was in trouble. Sable's head snapped toward the sound, her whole body going tense. She took 3 steps in that direction, then stopped. The roar came again from the north. She was caught between 2 imperatives. Investigate the cry for help or defend the territory from the unknown threat. Liam grabbed his plasma cutter from the shuttle and activated it. The blue flame cast dancing shadows across the clearing. Sable looked at him, and in that moment, Liam saw something that made his breath catch. She was asking for help. This apex predator, this creature that had killed trained soldiers, was looking to a human for support. He pointed the cutter toward the north and shook his head. Then he pointed it east and nodded. Sable seemed to understand. She barked once, and Rust moved to take her position guarding the territory. Then she, Smoke, and Liam headed toward the whimpering sound, leaving Flint and the younger ones to watch for the northern threat. They moved through the crimson jungle in tense silence. Sable led, her body low and her senses alert. Smoke flanked right while Liam took the left, his cutter held ready. The whimpering grew louder, more desperate. They emerged into a small clearing dominated by the ruins of an old research station. Its walls collapsed and overgrown with alien vines. Trapped beneath a fallen support beam was one of the younger Rendstalkers. Dash. His leg was pinned, and a deep gash in his flank leaked dark blood. He saw Sable and cried out, a sound that was heartbreakingly young and scared. Sable approached, but stopped short. The beam was too heavy even for her. She turned to Liam. He moved forward, assessing the situation. The beam was metal, corroded but still solid. His plasma cutter could slice through it, but he would need to get close to the injured and frightened predator. Dash watched him with wide, terrified eyes. One wrong move, and those claws could open him from throat to belly. Liam knelt down and began talking again, the same calm tone he had used earlier. He explained what he was going to do, knowing Dash could not understand the words, but hoping the intent would come through. He touched the beam gently, showing Dash where he would cut. Then, moving with deliberate slowness, he activated the cutter. The plasma flame bit into the metal, sending sparks flying. Dash thrashed, panicking at the heat and noise. Sable moved in close and pressed her head against Dash's, rumbling deep in her chest. It was a comfort sound, and it worked. Dash went still, trusting his matriarch even in his terror. Liam cut through the beam section by section. When the final piece fell away, Dash scrambled free and immediately limped to Sable's side. Liam pulled out his medical kit and approached with the antiseptic spray. Dash snarled, but Sable barked once. The young Rendstalker went quiet and allowed Liam to treat the wound. As Liam worked, spraying the gash and wrapping it with a pressure bandage, he felt Sable's breath on his neck. She was close enough to kill him without effort, watching every movement. When he finished and stepped back, she made that approving grunt again. Then she did something that stopped Liam's heart. She pressed her scarred muzzle against his shoulder, just for a moment. They were a pack now, and Liam had just proven he was worth keeping. 3 days after the crash, Liam woke to Sable's warning growl. He was on his feet instantly, the plasma cutter in his hand before his eyes fully focused. The pack had formed a defensive line at the northern edge of the clearing, their bodies tense and their attention fixed on the sky. Liam looked up and felt his stomach sink. A coalition shuttle was descending through the purple atmosphere, its engines screaming as it burned through the cloud layer. It was military class, heavily armored and bristling with weapon ports. This was not a rescue mission. This was an extermination team. Liam's damaged emergency beacon had finally attracted attention, but not the kind he wanted. The shuttle landed 2 kilometers north of his position, far enough to avoid the Rendstalker territory, but close enough to scan the area. He watched through the shuttle's sensor array as 8 figures disembarked, all armed and moving in tactical formation. The comm system crackled to life. Lieutenant Varen's voice filled the clearing, distorted by static but unmistakable. Cadet Cross, if you can hear this transmission, respond immediately. We have arrived for emergency extraction. Acknowledge. Liam grabbed the comm unit and keyed it. This is Cross. I acknowledge, but I need you to listen very carefully. Do not engage the Rendstalkers. They're not hostile. Repeat, they're not hostile. There was a long pause. When Varen responded, his tone was equal parts shock and disbelief. Cross, you're alive? Explain your situation. Are you under duress? Are the predators holding you captive? Liam almost laughed at the absurdity of the question. No, sir. I am in no danger from the Rendstalkers. I have established peaceful contact. They are intelligent and social. If you come in weapons hot, you will destroy everything I have built. Another pause, longer this time. Liam imagined Varen's mandibles clicking in confusion. Cadet, no species has ever made peaceful contact with Kairos, 7 predators. The database shows 100% fatality rates. You are either experiencing psychological trauma or you have been incredibly fortunate. Either way, we are extracting you now. Remain in your position. Sir, with respect, you do not understand what you are dealing with. Let me demonstrate. Liam turned to Sable and held up his hand. She watched him with those reflective eyes. Over the past 3 days, They had developed basic communication. He had taught her simple hand signals, not because she needed training, but because it established a shared language. He pointed to the left, then made a circling motion. Sable barked once. Rust and Flint immediately broke from the defensive line and circled left, moving through the jungle in perfect coordination. Liam pointed right and made a different gesture. Smoke and the younger ones moved right. Sable remained in position, watching Liam for the next command. He activated the external camera feed and broadcast it to the Coalition shuttle. Are you seeing this, Lieutenant? They understand commands. They coordinate. They communicate. These are not mindless predators. The comm was silent for a full minute. When Varen spoke again, his voice was strained. Cross, we are observing your feed. I do not know what tricks you have employed, but the Council's standing orders are clear. Kairos 7 is scheduled for orbital sterilization in 48 hours. A mining corporation has purchased the rights to this moon. All biological threats must be eliminated before operations begin. The words hit Liam like a punch to the gut. Orbital sterilization meant plasma bombardment from space. Nothing would survive. Not the Rinstalkers, not the jungle, nothing. He looked at Sable, at the pack that had adopted him and trusted him. He had promised them safety by showing them kindness. Now he had to deliver. Sir, I need time. Give me 24 hours to prove these creatures are sentient. The Coalition has laws protecting sentient species. If I can demonstrate they meet the criteria, the sterilization must be halted. Varen's voice dropped lower, almost sympathetic. Cross, even if what you claim is true, the corporation has legal authority. They have already filed the necessary waivers. Unless you can provide irrefutable proof of advanced sentience, the bombardment will proceed. Then let me provide proof. Send observers. Bring whatever specialists you need. But give me one day. Liam's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. Everything depended on this moment. I'm asking not as a cadet to a superior officer, but as one member of the Coalition to another. These beings deserve a chance. The comm went silent again. Liam could imagine the discussion happening in that distant shuttle. Varen was by the book, but he was not cruel. The lieutenant had left him supplies and a recording. He had shown guilt. Maybe that guilt would translate into action. Finally, Varen responded. We are approaching your position. Keep the predators away from my team, or we will fire in self-defense. You have 24 hours, Cadet. Make them count. Liam turned to Sable and the pack. He needed them to understand that the approaching Coalition team was not a threat, at least not yet. He gathered the pack close and spent an hour using every communication method he had developed. Hand signals, vocalizations he had learned to mimic, even sent marking using mud and crush plants. The message was simple. New pack, temporary alliance, no fighting. Sable seemed to grasp the concept faster than he expected. She gathered her pack and issued a series of commands. The Rinstalkers pulled back to a defensive perimeter around the crash site, but kept their claws retracted. It was the Predator equivalent of a white flag. The Coalition team arrived an hour later. Liam counted 8 members in full tactical armor. Varen led the formation, his 6 eyes scanning the jungle with obvious paranoia. Behind him walked a 4-armed DR1N medic whose name tag read Quellis, and a Kelith soldier called Ratch. The others were species Liam did not immediately recognize, all armed and clearly nervous. Varen stopped 10 meters from the clearing edge. The Rinstalkers were visible in the tree line, their eyes glowing in the shadows. To the Coalition team's credit, no one fired. But Liam could see fingers on triggers and stance ready for combat. Cross stepped forward slowly. We are here to extract you. Varen's voice was controlled but tight. Liam did not move. Sir, I appreciate the rescue effort, but I am not leaving. Not until we resolve the sterilization issue. That is not your decision to make, Cadet. With respect, sir, I am making it my decision. Liam gestured to Sable, who stepped out of the tree line. The Coalition team collectively took a step back. Sable was impressive in daylight, her scarred muzzle and blade claws marking her as a survivor of countless fights. She moved to Liam's side and sat, mirroring the position he had taken 3 days ago. Quellis, the DRYNN medic, made a sound of amazement. Her forearms gestured excitedly. By the ancestors, it is obeying him. She is not obeying me, Liam corrected. She is choosing to sit next to me. There is a difference. And her name is Sable. Ratch, the Kelith soldier, clicked his mandibles. You named them? Cross, you have been alone too long. These things are killers. So are we, Liam shot back. Humans killed plenty of species on our way up the evolutionary ladder. We hunted megafauna to extinction. We warred with each other for thousands of years. But we learned to cooperate. We built societies. The Renstalkers deserve the same chance to prove themselves. Varen stepped forward, his armor servos whining. You have 24 hours to prove sentience. The criteria are tool use, abstract communication, and cooperative problem solving. Begin your demonstration. Liam nodded. He had spent the last day preparing for this. He pulled out a sealed container from a shuttle, one filled with ration bars. He locked it with a combination seal that required manipulating multiple switches in sequence. Then he placed it in the center of the clearing. Sable watched him, her head tilted in curiosity. Liam pointed at the container and then at his mouth, indicating food. He made an encouraging sound, the same one Sable used with the younger pack members. She approached the container and sniffed it thoroughly. Then she circled it, examining it from every angle. Rust and Flint joined her, adding their assessments. The three adult Renstalkers conferred through a series of low vocalizations. Then Sable did something that made Quellis gasp. She picked up a rock with her claws, raised it above her head, and brought it down on the container's locking mechanism. The first strike dented it. The second cracked it. The third broke it open. Sable pulled out a ration bar and carried it to the younger ones. She did not eat it herself. She taught them how to open the packaging, demonstrating with patient repetition until Dash successfully unwrapped his own. The coalition team watched in stunned silence. Tool use, Liam said quietly, and teaching behavior. They pass knowledge to the next generation, just like we do. Varen's mandibles worked silently. Ratch had lowered his weapon. Quellis was recording everything with her scanner, her forearms moving in excited patterns. The other team members exchanged glances that ranged from fear to fascination. One test passed, Varen admitted. 2 more to go. And Cross, you have less than 23 hours remaining. Liam spent the next 6 hours working on the second test, while the coalition team set up a temporary observation post at the clearing's edge. Quellis proved to be an unexpected ally. The DRYNN medic approached the Renstalkers with scientific curiosity rather than fear, taking bioscans and documenting behaviors. She kept her distance and moved slowly, respecting the pack's space. Sable tolerated her presence, which Liam took as a good sign. Abstract communication was harder to demonstrate than tool use. Liam needed to show that the Renstalkers could understand symbols representing concepts they could not directly see or smell. He cleared a patch of dirt near the crash site and began drawing with a stick. Simple shapes first. A circle for the sun, a triangle for danger, a square for safety or shelter. He repeated the shapes over and over, always in the same context. When he brought out food, he drew the circle. When a loud noise startled the pack, he drew the triangle and pointed toward the source. When they settled down to rest, he drew the square near their chosen spots. The pack watched with varying levels of interest. Sable paid close attention. Smoke observed from a distance. The younger ones mostly got distracted and wandered off. After 4 hours, Liam decided to test what they had learned. He drew the triangle in the dirt and then stepped back. Sable approached and stared at it. She looked at Liam, then back at the symbol. Nothing happened for a long moment. Then she barked, a sharp warning sound, and the pack immediately went on alert. They had connected the symbol to the concept of danger. Quellis recorded it all, her forearms working her equipment while her vocal translator produced excited chirps. This is remarkable. They are forming abstract associations. The cognitive leap required to connect a visual symbol to an emotional state is significant. Varen was less impressed. One symbol does not prove language capability. They could simply be responding to the cadet's body language or tone. Liam ignored him and drew the circle. Dash, the youngest and most curious, approached first. He sniffed the symbol, then looked at Liam expectantly. Food. The circle meant food. Liam pulled out a ration bar and gave it to him. Dash chirped happily and carried his prize back to the pack, but the real test came an hour later. Scout, the observant younger wren stalker, had been gone since morning on one of his ranging patrols. He returned in a rush, his body language screaming alarm. He ran straight to the dirt patch where Liam had been drawing and, using his claw, scraped a crude triangle into the ground. The pack exploded into action. Sable barked orders. Rust and Flint formed a defensive line. Smoke circled to flank. Scout then pointed with his muzzle toward the western jungle and made urgent clicking sounds. He was reporting a threat using the symbol system Liam had taught them. The coalition team scrambled to defensive positions. Weapons came up, and sensors swept the tree line. Liam felt his heart race. Whatever Scout had found, it was dangerous enough to warrant the triangle symbol that a massive shape emerged from the jungle. It stood 3 times the height of a wren stalker, with 6 legs and a body covered in thick chitinous plates. Its head was all teeth, row after row of them in a circular maw. The database in Liam's neural implant identified it immediately. A Kairos ripper, one of the few creatures on the moon that actively hunted wren stalkers. Varen's voice cut through the calm. All units, prepare to engage. Cross, get behind our line now. But Liam was watching the pack. Sable had not ordered an attack. She had positioned her pack defensively, protecting the younger ones and keeping formation. She was not looking at the Ripper with aggression, but with wary calculation. This was her territory, but she did not want to fight. The Ripper was here for a reason. Then Liam saw it. Behind the Ripper, barely visible through the undergrowth, were 3 smaller shapes. Juveniles. The Ripper was not hunting. She was moving her young through wren stalker territory, a dangerous but necessary migration. If violence started now, everyone would lose. Liam stepped forward, drawing both the Rippers and the coalition team's attention. Varen shouted something, but Liam was not listening. He knelt in the dirt and drew a new symbol, one he had not taught the pack yet. A line between 2 circles. Connection. Peace. Passage. Sable looked at the symbol, then at Liam. He pointed to the Ripper, then to the far side of the clearing, then back to the symbol. His message was clear. Let them pass. Sable rumbled deep in her chest, a sound of displeasure. This was her territory. Allowing another apex predator-free passage was against every instinct, but Sable was smart. She looked at her pack, particularly at the younger ones. She looked at the Ripper's juveniles. Then she made a decision that proved her sentience beyond any test Liam could have designed. She barked once and stepped aside. The pack followed her lead, opening a corridor through their territory. The Ripper paused, its circular maw working as if tasting the air. Then it moved forward, its juveniles staying close. The massive creature passed within meters of the wren stalkers, who remained statue still. It took 5 minutes for the Ripper family to cross the clearing and disappear into the eastern jungle. Only when they were gone did the pack relax. Quellis was making sounds of pure academic joy. Did you document that, Ratch? They demonstrated mercy. They understood the concept of safe passage. They recognized that another creature was protecting its young and chose cooperation over conflict. Even Ratch seemed affected. His mandibles clicked slowly. I have never seen predators behave this way. This goes beyond instinct. Varen lowered his weapon. His 6 eyes focused on Liam with new intensity. 2 tests passed. You have 1 remaining. Cooperative problem solving. But Cross, we have a new problem. A different shuttle was descending through the atmosphere. This one was civilian class, marked with corporate logos. It landed near the coalition team's shuttle, and a single figure emerged. The being was a Tethin, a species known for their cold logic and business acumen. He wore expensive environmental armor and carried himself with the absolute confidence of someone who owned everything around him. I am Administrator Vol, the Tethin announced through a translator that gave his voice a mechanical edge. I represent the consolidated mining interests that have purchased this moon. I am here to ensure the sterilization proceeds on schedule. Varen's posture stiffened. Administrator, We are conducting sentience evaluation of the local predator species. Until the evaluation concludes, the sterilization must be postponed. Vol made a dismissive gesture. I have reviewed your preliminary reports. Tool use and symbolic recognition are interesting but insufficient. Many non-sentient species display similar behaviors. The legal threshold for sentience protection requires proof of abstract reasoning, cultural transmission, and complex social organization. You have demonstrated none of these things. Liam felt anger rising in his chest. We have demonstrated all of those things. Sable just chose to protect another species' young over territorial dominance. That is abstract moral reasoning. That is anthropomorphization, Vol countered. You are projecting human values onto animal behavior. Perhaps the predator simply did not want to fight. Perhaps it was afraid. Your emotional attachment to these creatures is clouding your judgment. Quellis stepped forward, her forearms spreading in a gesture of academic authority. Administrator, I'm a licensed xenobiologist with 40 years of field experience. I have documented behaviors in the last 12 hours that meet every standard criteria for sentience. These creatures deserve protected status. Vol was unmoved. Your opinion is noted, Doctor. However, I have legal authority here. The sterilization fleet is in orbit. They will begin bombardment in 6 hours unless this coalition team can provide irrefutable proof of sentience. Not interesting behaviors. Not clever tricks. Proof. He turned to face Liam directly. Young human, I understand you have formed an attachment to these animals. That is natural. Humans are known for bonding with creatures that would otherwise destroy them. But sentimentality cannot override economic reality. This moon contains rare minerals worth trillions of credits. A few predators, no matter how intelligent, cannot justify halting a multi-year development project. Liam met Folsgeish. These are not animals. They are people. They have families. They teach their young. They make moral choices. If humanity had judged every species by their capacity for violence, we would have wiped out half the coalition. Perhaps, Vol agreed, but humanity also understands progress. You built cities on land where dangerous creatures once roamed. You tamed your world. Now you ask others to leave theirs wild for the sake of beasts. The hypocrisy is noted. The administrator activated a holographic display. It showed the orbital fleet, weapons charging. 6 hours, Cadet cross. Prove they are sentient, or prove they are not. Either way, this matter will be resolved today. Vol returned to his shuttle, leaving the clearing in tense silence. Liam looked at Sable and her pack. They had passed 2 tests, but the third test, cooperative problem solving, required something extraordinary. Something that would convince not just Varen or Quellis, but a corporate administrator who measured value in credits and resources. He had 6 hours to save an entire species, and he had no idea how to do it. Liam had 3 hours left when Quellis approached him with an idea. The DRWN medic had been reviewing her scans of the Wren stalkers, and her forearms moved in agitated patterns as she spoke. Cadet Cross, I have been analyzing their neural structures. The complexity is extraordinary. Their brain-to-body ratio is comparable to dolphins on your Earth. But more importantly, I have detected electromagnetic signatures that suggest they may have a form of distributed intelligence. Liam looked up from where he was planning the final test. Distributed intelligence? Like a hive mind? Not precisely. More like a shared awareness. When one pack member learns something, the information propagates through the group faster than individual teaching would allow. It is similar to how some Earth corvids teach each other to recognize threats, but far more sophisticated. Quellis gestured towards Sable, who was coordinating the pack's patrol patterns. That matriarch is not just a leader. She is a living library of the pack's collective knowledge. The information sparked something in Liam's mind. Cooperative problem solving required demonstrating that the pack could work together toward a common goal, dividing tasks based on individual strengths and coordinating without direct commands. He needed to create a scenario complex enough that it could not be dismissed as instinct or simple training. But he spent the next hour setting up the test using materials from both shuttles. He created a mock rescue scenario. A supply crate was placed at the bottom of a ravine behind the crash site, too deep for anyone to simply climb down and retrieve. The crate contained food, which would motivate the pack. But getting to it required 3 separate tasks performed simultaneously. Someone had to anchor a rope at the top, someone had to descend and secure the crate, and someone had to signal when it was safe to pull everything up. Liam gathered the pack and explained the scenario using the symbol system they had developed. He drew circles for food, triangles for danger points, and lines showing the path down. Then he stepped back and waited. The coalition team gathered to observe, with Vol watching from his shuttle's open hatch, his expression skeptical. Sable examined the ravine. She looked down at the crate, then back at her pack. She made a series of vocalizations, and the pack responded with focused attention. Then the coordination began, and it was beautiful to watch. Rust, the largest and strongest, positioned himself at the anchor point. He wrapped his body around a sturdy tree root, bracing himself to serve as the living anchor. Smoke, the strategic thinker, descended into the ravine, using his claws to grip the rock face. His movements were calculated and precise, each placement tested before committing his weight. The younger ones, Dash and Scout, took positions along the ravine edge as spotters. But here was where it became extraordinary. Ember, the youngest female, remained with Sable at the top. When Smoke reached a difficult section of the descent, he paused and made a clicking sound. Ember responded with a different click, and Sable adjusted Rust's position slightly. The feedback loop was instantaneous. They were communicating the descent progress and making micro-adjustments as a unified team. Smoke reached the bottom and secured the crate. Then came the real test. The rope Liam had provided was too short. Smoke vocalized the problem, a frustrated rumble that echoed up from the ravine. The pack could have abandoned the effort. Instead, Sable made a decision that demonstrated abstract reasoning beyond anything Liam had hoped for. She barked at Flint, the aggressive male who had been holding back from the operation. Flint descended halfway into the ravine and braced himself against a rock outcropping. He became a living relay point. Smoke passed the crate up to Flint. Flint passed it up to Dash, who had moved into position on a ledge. Dash passed it to Scout at the top. The pack had created a chain, adapting to the unexpected problem without any guidance from Liam. When the crate reached the surface, the pack did not immediately tear into it. They waited. Sable approached the crate, opened it using the technique she had learned earlier, and distributed the food according to the pack hierarchy. Those who had worked hardest, Rust and Smoke, received the first shares. The younger ones received their portions next. Flint, who had contributed less, received a smaller share. It was not just cooperation, it was society. Quellis was vocally translating her amazement into 3 different languages. Ratch had lowered his weapon entirely and was shaking his head in disbelief. Even some of Vol's corporate security team were murmuring among themselves. Varen approached Liam, his 6 eyes showing what might have been respect. 3 tests passed. I will submit my report to the Coalition Council immediately. These creatures meet every legal definition of sentient life. The sterilization must be halted, but Vol's voice cut through the celebration like a blade. Insufficient. Every head turned toward the administrator. He was reviewing a datapad, his expression unchanged. I have consulted with my legal team. While the demonstrations are impressive, they do not override the existing development contracts. The Council's sentience protection laws include a clause for threat assessment. If a species, regardless of intelligence, poses an unacceptable danger to Coalition citizens, they may be relocated or, if relocation is unfeasible, humanely eliminated. Liam felt cold wash through his body. You cannot be serious. They have proven they are not mindless killers. They have proven they are intelligent killers, which makes them even more dangerous. Vol gestured toward Sable. That creature could tear through combat armor. Her pack could destroy a research outpost. The fact that they think before they kill does not make them safe. Quellis stepped forward, all 4 arms raised in protest. That logic could apply to any species. Humans have killed millions of their own kind. Keleth have mandatory military service. Every species in the coalition has capacity for violence. But every species in the coalition can be held accountable through law and culture, Vole countered. These predators have no legal framework, no government to negotiate with, no way to guarantee they will not attack future mining operations. The economic risk is unacceptable. Liam's mind raced. Vole had moved the goalposts. It was not about sentience anymore. It was about control and profit. He looked at Sable, who was watching the argument with clear understanding. She could not follow the words, but she understood the tension. She knew they were fighting for her pack's survival, an idea formed, desperate and probably insane. But it was the only option left. Administrator Vole, you said the problem is accountability and legal framework. What if the Rindstalkers had both? What if they had a representative in the coalition who could speak for them and guarantee their behavior? Vole's expression did not change. Impossible. They cannot participate in coalition governance. But I can. Liam stepped forward. I request formal status as the Rindstalkers' legal guardian and species representative. Under coalition law, any sentient species may petition for membership if they have an advocate who meets citizenship requirements. I am a coalition citizen. I have established communication with this species. I can serve as their voice. Varen's mandibles clicked in shock. Cross, that is unprecedented. Species representation requires years of study, diplomatic training, and council approval. You are a cadet. I'm also the only being in the galaxy who speaks their language, Liam countered. I have lived with them. I understand their culture. I can guarantee their peaceful integration if given the chance. Vole studied Liam for a long moment. Even if the council accepted your petition, which is doubtful, the process takes months. My sterilization authorization expires in 2 hours. If I do not use it, I must refile, which costs my corporation millions in delays. Then do not refile, Liam said. Sell the mining rights to the council as a nature preserve. You will recover your investment, the Rindstalkers live, and the coalition gains a unique opportunity to study a newly recognized sentient species in their natural habitat. For the first time, Vole showed emotion. He made a sound that might have been a laugh. You want me to turn a profit center into a charity project? I want you to choose between profit and genocide, Liam replied flatly. History will remember which one you picked. The silence stretched. Somewhere in the crimson jungle, a creature called out. The 3 moons of Kairos, 7 hung in the purple sky, indifferent to the drama below. Sable stood beside Liam, close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her armored body. Vole tapped his datapad several times. Then he spoke. I will present your proposal to my board. But understand this, human. If I agree, and if the council accepts your petition, you become personally responsible for every action this species takes. If they attack a mining team, you face charges. If they kill a researcher, you answer for it. Your life becomes intertwined with theirs. Are you prepared for that burden? Liam did not hesitate. I am. 6 months had passed since Kairos. 7 went from scheduled extermination to protected preserve status. Liam stood on the observation deck of Research Station Gamma, watching Sable teach a group of xenobiologists from 4 different species how Rindstalkers mark territory boundaries. The scientists kept a respectful distance, their recording equipment capturing every detail. Sable tolerated them with patient dignity, occasionally glancing toward Liam as if to confirm this was still acceptable. The transformation had not been easy. The Coalition Council had debated for 3 weeks before granting the Rindstalkers provisional sentient status. Liam's formal petition as species representative had raised questions about precedent and protocol that kept legal scholars arguing for months. But the video footage of the pack's cooperative problem-solving had gone viral across coalition networks. Public opinion shifted faster than bureaucracy. Cadet Corporation had eventually agreed to sell the mining rights to the council for a reduced but still profitable sum. The administrator had been furious, but he was also a pragmatist. The publicity around the Rindstalkers had made Kairos 7 politically toxic for resource extraction. Better to cut losses and move on. Liam had spent the first month establishing basic infrastructure. The research station was built on the far side of the moon, deliberately distant from primary Rindstalker territory. Contact protocols were developed, limiting interaction to designated ambassadors from both species. Sable's pack had been the first to volunteer for regular contact, which surprised no one who knew them. The other Rindstalker packs across Kairos, 7 were more cautious, observing from distance before deciding if they wanted involvement. The real challenge had been teaching coalition species to see Rindstalkers as people rather than monsters. Decades of fear and horror stories did not disappear overnight. Liam had become an unexpected celebrity, giving interviews and presentations across coalition space. He spoke about the first moment Sable sat beside him, about Dash's rescue, about watching the pack choose mercy over territory. He made people understand that intelligence came in many forms. Quellis had been instrumental in the scientific side. Her documentation of Rindstalker neurology and social structures had filled databases and sparked a new field of xenobiology. She had even developed a theory about the distributed intelligence Liam had observed. The Rindstalkers shared emotional states and basic concepts through a combination of electromagnetic pulses and pheromones, creating a pack-wide awareness that enhanced their individual thinking. It was not telepathy, but it was close. Varen had surprised everyone by requesting transfer to the Kairos 7 integration project. The Kelith lieutenant had privately admitted to Liam that abandoning him remained his greatest regret. Working with the Rindstalkers was his way of making amends. He had proven effective, his military precision translating well into coordinating the complex logistics of species integration. Right now, Varen was escorting a delegation of young coalition cadets through the station, showing them what successful first contact looked like. Liam watched through the viewport as Varen pointed toward Sable and her teaching session. The cadets looked nervous but fascinated. One of them, a human girl no older than 10, asked if she could meet the Rindstalkers up close. Liam activated his calm Varen, bringing the group down. Affirmative. Is Sable amenable to visitors? Liam checked with Sable through their established signal system. She rumbled her approval and called Ember over. The younger female had grown in confidence over the months, becoming one of the primary ambassadors. She enjoyed meeting new species and had a gentle demeanor that put nervous visitors at ease. The delegation arrived 15 minutes later. The young human girl stayed close to Varen's side, her eyes wide as she took in Ember's full size. The Rindstalker was impressive up close, all sleek armor and sharp claws. But Ember lowered herself to the ground, making herself smaller and less threatening. "Can I touch her?" the girl whispered. Liam knelt beside the child. "You need to ask her, not me. She makes her own choices. Watch her body language. If her ears are forward and her eyes are soft, she is relaxed. If they pull back or her claws extend, she wants space." The girl approached slowly, her hand extended. "Hello, my name is Priya. Can I pet you?" Ember did not understand the words, but she understood the intent. She leaned forward and pressed her scarred muzzle against the girl's palm. Priya giggled with delight and ran her fingers along Ember's plaited head. The watching cadets relaxed, seeing that these so-called monsters could be gentle. After the delegation left, Liam sat with Sable on the observation platform overlooking the Crimson Jungle. The matriarch was aging, her muzzle showing more scars and her movements slightly slower. But her eyes remained sharp and intelligent. They had developed a comfortable silence over the months, able to simply exist in each other's presence without constant communication. "You know," Liam said quietly, "I never thank you properly. You could have killed me that first day. You had every reason to, but you chose to see what I was offering instead of what I looked like." Sable made a soft rumbling sound and leaned against his shoulder. The weight was substantial, but Liam had grown stronger in the past months. He scratched behind her ear, finding the spot that made her eyes half close in pleasure. "The Council wants to expand the integration project to other predator zones," he continued. "There are 12 moons and 3 planets marked for extermination because they are considered too dangerous. I am supposed to testify next month about whether we should try the same approach." Sable pulled back and looked at him. Liam had learned to read her expressions. This one was curiosity mixed with concern. "I know. It is a lot, and it might not work everywhere. Your species was ready for contact. Others might not be, but I think we have to try. The galaxy is big enough for all of us if we are willing to share. Movement in the jungle caught his attention. Rust and Flint were escorting a group of younger Rindstalkers toward the station. Not Sable's pack, but another family group from the Southern Territories. They had been observing the integration process for weeks and had finally decided to make contact. Progress was happening, slowly but steadily. Liam's calm buzzed. It was Quellis, her voice excited as always. Cross, you need to see this. We have breakthrough data on pack communication. I think I have isolated the specific electromagnetic frequency they use for sharing danger warnings. If we can develop a translator, we could create a real-time communication system. On my way, Liam replied. He stood and gestured for Sable to follow. She rose gracefully and padded beside him as they entered the research station. Scientists from half a dozen species glanced up and nodded greetings. Seeing a human and a Rindstalker walking together had become normal here. That normalization was the real victory in the lab. Quellis had arrays of equipment spread across 3 tables, her 4 arms moving between displays with practiced efficiency. Look at this pattern. When Scout detected that Cairo's Ripper 6 months ago, he broadcast this specific pulse sequence. Every Rindstalker within 2 kilometers responded simultaneously. It is not language exactly, but it is shared situational awareness. Liam studied the readouts. The implications were staggering. If they could tap into this communication network, they could understand Rindstalker society at a fundamental level. But it also raised ethical questions about privacy and consent. We need to ask permission before we go further, he said. This is their private communication. We cannot just eavesdrop because we have the technology. Quellis paused and looked at him with all 4 eyes. Then she made a gesture of agreement. You are right. I got excited and forgot the most important lesson you taught us. They are people, not specimens. That evening, Liam called a gathering of all the Rindstalker representatives currently at the station. Sable's pack, the Southern Territory group, and 3 individuals from the mountain clans. He explained what Quellis had discovered and asked for their input. The discussion took hours, conducted through a mixture of symbols, vocalizations, and the basic translator system they had developed. In the end, the Rindstalkers agreed to allow limited study of their communication, provided the data was shared with them and used to help other Rindstalkers understand coalition languages. It was negotiation. It was diplomacy. It was everything Liam had hoped. 4.3 weeks later, Liam stood before the Coalition Council in the Grand Chamber on the Capital World. Hundreds of representatives from across known space watched as he presented his findings and recommendations. He spoke about Cairo's 7, about the Rindstalkers, about what humanity had learned during its own journey from isolated world to galactic citizen. We were not always peaceful, he told the council. Earth's history is filled with violence and mistakes. We hunted species to extinction. We warred with ourselves, but we also learned to cooperate. We built civilizations. We reached for the stars. The species on our extermination list deserve the same chance we were given. Not all of them will choose integration. Some may remain isolated, but we should offer the choice before we offer destruction. The vote was not unanimous. Some council members argued that the risks outweighed the benefits. Others worried about the resource cost of integration projects. But the majority voted to establish a new coalition initiative, the Species Contact and Integration Program. Cairo's 7 would serve as the model. Other predator zones would be evaluated not for extermination, but for potential sentience. Liam was appointed director of the program, much to his shock. He was still technically a cadet, though the council fast-tracked his citizenship credentials and granted him full diplomatic status. He accepted the position with one condition. Sable and her pack would serve as co-directors, their perspectives given equal weight in all decisions. Months turned into a year. The program expanded to 6 additional sites. Not all attempts succeeded. 2 species proved genuinely hostile and incapable of or uninterested in communication. They were relocated to isolated preserves rather than destroyed. But 4 species demonstrated intelligence and social organization comparable to the Rindstalkers. For more chances for the galaxy to grow, Liam returned to Kairos, 7 whenever possible. The moon had become home in ways Earth never quite managed. He walked the crimson jungles with Sable, taught younger Rindstalkers to interact with coalition species, and documented everything for future integration efforts. One evening, as the 3 moons rose and painted the jungle in silver light, he sat with the entire pack on a hillside overlooking the research station. Sable's pack had grown. Ember had become a teacher in her own right. Dash and Scout were leading their own scouting teams. Even Rust and Flint had mellowed, spending more time mentoring young Rindstalkers than fighting over territory. Sable rumbled beside him, and Liam understood the meaning without translation. Contentment, safety, family. The pack had survived because one scared human refused to hide and one curious Rindstalker refused to kill. Everything that followed grew from that single choice to see the person instead of the predator. "We did good work," Liam said softly. "Your species will never be forgotten or dismissed again. You made sure of that." Sable pressed her muzzle against his shoulder in the gesture she reserved for packmates. Liam wrapped his arm around her scarred neck and watched the stars emerge in the purple sky. Somewhere out there, other humans were learning to build bridges instead of walls. Other species were getting chances instead of death sentences that IT had started with 1 abandoned cadet and 7 curious predators. Now, it was changing the galaxy. And Liam knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly what humanity was supposed to do. Not conquer, not dominate, but connect. Build families across the stars, one unlikely friendship at a time. The Rindstalkers had taught him that the deadliest creatures in the universe just needed someone brave enough to sit down and say hello. Everything else was just details.